Okay. What time is this class end? It's an hour and 5 minutes, I think. So 11:35, something like that. Latter half. Can I get everybody? Now I have one marked your reflections, giving you a little bit of feedback. You can take a look at the rubric. And then when we do it again, I would like you to unsubmit it and then resubmit it. So you don't have to change anything, just write a new paragraph. If I've asked for you to come and see me, please come and see me. There's some things I should probably let you know in terms of what I'm looking for on there. And a reminder, you should be doing your entire work on that Google Doc. So not in another document and pasting it in, or in Word or something like that and pasting it in, because then I can't see you write it. And if I can't see you write it, that doesn't remove the possibility of cheating, but it does increase the chances those weren't your thoughts, but perhaps someone else's or some plagiarism machine like ChatGPT or something. I'll give you hopefully some time to do that as well. We've done what ethics isn't. We've talked about how it's subjective and relative, and these are just, by going through some of the common objections, these are some of the reasons that philosophers give for why we agree that there might be some moral facts. It is by no means certain. There are philosophers, ethical philosophers, who are moral relativists. They are relatively fewer in number, but it is a much more common societal view. Depending on whether you're religious or not. If you're religious, you probably believe in some sort of moral objectivism within your faith. But this is talking about outside of that, overall. So, the first, we ended off here, right? Yep. Okay. So, disagreements of moral opinion moral disagreements are just disagreements of opinion. If you believe this, you're kind of saying that, genocide is like which type of coffee you prefer to drink and what your order is at Starbucks. Someone else might like genocide, you like a little light torture. These aren't necessarily just opinions, and it certainly feels like we're talking about facts. People feel very comfortable, even relativists, saying, no, this type of thing is always wrong. Genocide is always wrong. This is always wrong. And even though they may disagree, they seem to be talking about things like they're facts. It is an assumption in some ways, much like the assumption in science that says, like, if we repeat something and we keep getting the same answer, that must be the truth. That's just an assumption. We could be creating a world out of nothing that is just happenstance. But it is useful. And it doesn't feel like a disagreement over ice cream choices. So our language we've always used reflects our belief that it's true. People worry about whether or not you believe in certain things and whether things are right or wrong, much more than they worry about your ice cream flavor. Sometimes very strongly so. And we do appeal to evidence. You're going to see a lot of evidence presented through the course. You're probably going to give me some evidence why you think X, Y, or Z are right or wrong. We're going to have to look at your reasoning for it. We don't need any evidence when you say that chocolate mint ice cream is the best ice cream. We just know that you're wrong. Any evidence you give doesn't matter. And so this is the first hint that it might be, in fact, facts. Now, this doesn't prove it. It doesn't even necessarily mean that this is not something that you can say 100% like you should be convinced by this. As I said, there's famous people who are not. But most philosophers use this as sort of a starting ground. I'm going to whip through these fairly quickly. You don't have to write everything down word for word, but you should be writing some notes just to get the general gist down, and so that you're aware of these disagreements and a couple of reasons as we go along. From last day, is there anybody who needs this page? Still up. Do you still need this page still up? In terms of notes, is anybody still writing? Okay, keep going. Yep.
Sorry, is this slideshow on Google Classroom?
No. No, I want you to write it down.
But like if we wanted to like come back.
It's live streamed.
Oh.
That's my backup. If I get amnesia and forget who I am and what I'm doing, I just go back to the live streams. Go, aha, that's the kind of person I am. Kieran, your notes up? On an iPad with a pen? Or writing them out?
I don't have a piece of paper to write on.
Oh, where's your book for science and ethics?
Like my
Yeah. Zane could probably lend you a piece of paper. A reminder, the reason I say laptops is if you type information, you'll get more of it down, but you'll remember less of it. And so for learning, it's better to write. Now, if you, I don't know if for sure if anybody does. I think I've read through everybody's IEPs by now. But if you have an IEP that says absolutely you can type out your notes, because that's the only way you can get your notes, and obviously you can use a computer, just see me or let me know. You'll be good to go. But if you like writing and you want to have a backup and you want to have it as a computer, there are students who use an iPad and they just write it that way. There's a number in Chemistry 12 who are doing that, and it is fairly useful. And it should have the same impact as handwriting your notes. Now, does anybody have any reasons why you take a picture? It's live streamed. You can go back to it anytime. Yeah, you just go live stream. Does anybody have any objections to ethical objectivism at this point? Maybe you will preview one of the future ones we're coming up with. It's like, no, I think it's really relativism. Or culture. Did the bottle fall on you? Oh, okay. Never mind. Excellent. We're all good objectivists.
Mr. Goodell,
Yeah.
what do you mean in the slideshow by moral claim? You say moral language reflects the idea that moral claims are true?
Good point. So, if you come to me and you say, a moral claim is when you say something is morally wrong. So, that's a fancy way to say, if you went up to someone and say, you know what, I think cheating in class is wrong. Or I think lying is wrong. Or abortion is wrong. Or if you say abortion is fine. Or you say, if you've worked really hard, having a 3x5 piece of paper the professor doesn't know about, that's completely fine. They shouldn't expect you to memorize everything anyway. Those are all moral claims. You're saying an action is either morally right or morally wrong. That's all a moral claim is.
So technically you're saying that morals reflect the idea that they're true.
Yeah. The way we talk about them reflects the picture. So when you talk to someone about whether something is right or wrong, there's a heavy emotional attachment to it. We use logic when we use reason. We tend to back it up. I should be able to take a 3x5 card into my exam because I shouldn't have, memorizing isn't knowing, and that is going to help me in a way that isn't reflective of my actual ability in the course. That would be a moral argument for cheating on a test. Is it always wrong to lie, or is it okay to lie sometimes? These would be moral stances. One objection, another objection, is that where do moral facts exist? And the whole reason I started off with math is because where do the facts of math exist? Yeah, there is no landscaped. The Greeks had this idea that it was actually a literal place where these facts exist. And we've kind of seen that it could be that we just made it up. On the other hand, although we made it up, it is objective. It doesn't matter if someone thinks that 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. Unless you're in chemistry 11 or 12, it always does. Sometimes it can equal 5 with very large values of 2. So if someone's objecting in like, where do these facts exist? You can say, well, maybe it's kind of like math. Maybe we make it up and it's objective. We have axioms in moral landscapes. We talk about the principles of benevolence. We talk about the principles of justice. We refer to the rights of human beings and the duties. And these all feel like things that we're establishing as principles. In math, a lot of the axioms are unprovable. They simply are. And although you could observe them to always be true, you cannot prove them to be true. And math rests on those foundations. And one of those foundations we already know is broken because we found a way to break math in the last class. So it's not perfect. It seems to be invented by humans, but it seems to be touching on something that is not subjective the way making up just a fiction tale is, but objective. We can point to it. Other people with similar tools could come to the same conclusion. One of the ones I go back to with this one is if everything in human society was destroyed and babies repopulated the world and they started with nothing but, they had machines to feed them and clothe them until they could figure stuff out, they'd probably reinvent math. They wouldn't reinvent Shakespeare, but they would reinvent literature. But I'll bet you their ethics would look very similar to our own. We have a lot of different types. They would probably have a different types, but they'd probably talk about the same type of moral language. You can't find a moral system in the world that doesn't talk about things in these kinds of ways. Now, they can come to very different conclusions because they're using different reasoning methods. We're going to look at two that come to different conclusions all the time. Now, if you're theological, then we might defer to the Euthyphro dilemma and say there are more moral facts in the world. We know there must be. The deity also commands them and is guided by them. If we're not theological, well, maybe it's like math. We definitely know people who aren't very good at math. The fact that people that aren't very good at math exist doesn't mean that math doesn't exist. There are people that don't understand ethics. That doesn't mean ethics doesn't exist. Next one I find really interesting. If morals really exist, and they're useful, and they're being tracked, then evolution should track them. There should be more than just us. And it should track them in the same way that evolution tracks math. Although we may not see animals doing complex computations, we will see them acting in a way or growing in a way that reflects the math, reflects some principles of math, and we do see that. Do we see that with ethics? Oh, I clicked on it, but I am going to have to pause it and quickly stop the live stream. Load, load, load. Now, this is an excerpt from a TED Talk. This is now a famous experiment. And let's stop the live stream down.